The wind rolled in low and bitter along Maple Avenue, tugging at loose signs and flapping neglected flags outside empty storefronts. It was 43 de Grand Croix that morning, unseasonably cold for March in Greenwood Springs, Indiana. At the edge of Grace's Deli, under a flickering street lamp that hadn't been replaced in years, the old woman sat in silence on a rusted green bench. Her coat was several winters too old, the padding thinned at the elbows, the color long faded to a brownish gray. Her hands, wrapped in fingerless gloves, rested in her lap. She didn't speak. She didn't move. But she was there. Every day, same time, same bench. Some locals called her Bench Lady. Others didn't call her anything at all. She had become part of the scenery, noticed just enough to be avoided. Until today. Three teenage boys, Ricky Simmons, Jace Howard, and Tanner Graves, ambled by each with a half-finished bag of chips or a drink clutched in hand. The kind of boys who moved through the world loudly as if daring someone to tell them to stop. Ricky tossed an empty wrapper at the old woman's feet. "Hey, chocolate grandma," he snorted. "Still think you're someone special? She probably thinks she's in some war movie," Jace added, his voice curling with mockery. Tanner didn't speak, just held up his phone, the screen already capturing the encounter. Music played faintly in the background, some looped remix ready to be paired with humiliation. The woman didn't flinch, not at the laughter, not at the camera. She stared ahead, her eyes steady on nothing, as if time moved differently for her. Across the street, Maya Lynn stood still. She hadn't meant to stop. She was on her way home from school, her two big backpacks slung over one shoulder, her coat thin and too short at the wrists. She had duct tape over one of her sneakers and a worn scarf her mom had knitted when she still had time for hobbies. In her hands was a paper bag from the deli banana bread, still warm, still soft. It had cost $2. That was all her mom had been able to give her that morning. Her stomach grumbled softly. They didn't have dinner waiting at home, not really. Maybe some noodles, maybe not. But the scene unfolding across the street, three boys laughing, a woman unmoved, dignity intact, pulled at something Maya didn't fully understand. She looked down at the bag, then back at the bench. Without a word, she stepped off the curb. The traffic light above blinked yellow, casting shadows across her face as she walked. Her fingers gripped the bag tightly, knuckles white from cold and nerves. The boys barely noticed her at first, just another girl walking by. But then she stopped. Right in front of the bench, right in front of the woman. She bent slightly and placed the warm banana bread gently in the woman's lap. The boys fell silent. Even the phone stopped recording. The woman looked at Maya, not startled, not grateful, just present. Her eyes were clear, a soft gray, rimmed in red from cold, but sharp in a way Maya hadn't expected. "You didn't look away," the woman said softly. "That's enough." Maya offered a shy nod, her breath visible in the air. She turned and walked back across the street. Behind her, the boys burst into uneasy laughter, but it didn't ring as loudly this time. Tanner, the one behind the phone, lowered his hand slowly. He didn't say why. He just stopped. That night, Maya didn't mention anything to her mom. Mrs. Lynn came home exhausted, her janitor uniform, damp from the leaky bus stop, and her hands red from chemicals used to scrub downtown office floors. She peeled off her shoes, managed a tired smile, and asked how Maya's day had gone. "Fine," Maya said, and meant it in a way that was both true and not. They shared instant noodles in silence warmed in the microwave. Mrs. Lynn rubbed her lower back and dozed off in the recliner. Maya retreated to her room, the paper bag still clutched in her hands. She turned on her desk lamp, flickering, but still alive, and slowly opened the bag again. The banana bread was still mostly intact, but something else had been tucked deep within the folds of wax paper, a small object wrapped in delicate gold foil. She turned it over in her palm. It was smooth, cool, and oddly heavy for its size. In faint, almost faded cursive were the words, "Mathel's, Legacy Sample Batch 1, Do Not Sell." Her breath caught. She remembered the name, barely. Her mother had once bought a piece of Mathel's chocolate years ago for Maya's 8th birthday, back when they still lived in a 2-bedroom apartment and the world didn't feel so thin. It had been rich, soft, and tasted like things Maya couldn't describe, but Mathel's had disappeared. Just gone. No stores, no ads, no new products. Like a legend swallowed by time. Curious, Maya reached for her school-issued tablet and typed the words into the search bar. The first result stopped her cold. Eleanor Mathers, decorated Air Force commander and founder of Mattel's Legacy chocolate. She tapped the article. There in a faded photo, a woman in uniform. Her hair was pulled back, her eyes direct and solemn. Not smiling, not posing, just present, just like the woman on the bench. The article mentioned her retirement due to a rare neurological condition, her disappearance from public life, and the shuttering of her chocolate company. No one had seen her in nearly 10 years, until now. Maya put the tablet down slowly. Her fingers trembled. Her mind swirled with questions. Why was she here? Why this bench? And why that chocolate? But more than anything, she felt a strange kind of quiet settle over her. The kind that didn't ask for answers but held them close waiting. She didn't eat the chocolate. Somehow that felt wrong. Like opening a sealed letter before it was time. Like rushing a story still being told. Instead, she placed it carefully in a small ceramic dish beside her bed. And that night, for the first time in a long while, Maya dreamed not of hunger or cold, but of golden foil handwritten letters and a bench that glowed softly under the winter moon. 3 days ago, Maya Lynn quietly gave her last piece of banana bread to a woman the world had forgotten, Eleanor Mathers, once a decorated commander and chocolatier. Now Ellie sat unnoticed on a rusted bench, but Maya saw her, and that act, small but brave, had stirred something no one else could. Deruin. The air in Greenwood Springs had grown heavier, as if the town itself was holding its breath. The neon sign above Grace's Deli buzzed faintly, the G flickering in and out like a dying star. Maya walked past it on her way home from school, backpack tugging at her shoulders. Her fingers were cold again. Her coat sleeves didn't quite cover her wrists. She hadn't seen Ellie in 3 days, but the golden-wrapped chocolate still sat untouched in a ceramic dish beside her bed. Each night she checked on it like a secret. That afternoon, as she rounded the corner past the deli, she paused. The bench was no longer empty. Ellie was there again, seated in the same quiet posture, hands folded, eyes fixed ahead. Her presence didn't demand attention, but for Maya it was magnetic. She almost called out, almost waved, but something in her chest stopped her. That's when she saw them. Ricky, Jace, Tanner. They were back, not just passing by this time, but circling like boys with a plan. Ricky held a small plastic container, the kind you'd get from the school cafeteria. Maya couldn't see what was inside until he tilted it forward and poured. Milk. Cold and white, it splashed onto the ground in front of Ellie's boots, pooling against the sidewalk and dripping down the gutter. She still thinks she's some kind of general, Jace muttered with a grin. Maybe she's waiting for a parade. Ricky snickered. Tanner was filming again. The music had changed. A carnival tune this time, the kind that made everything look foolish. Ellie didn't move. Her coat, the same worn one, hung still around her shoulders. But Maya noticed something different this time, a tremor in Ellie's right hand. Subtle, barely there, but real. And something else too, the way she looked straight ahead, not flinching, not responding. Like she'd faced worse, like this was familiar. Maya's stomach twisted. She stood across the street, her breath fogging the air in front of her. Her heart thudded painfully. Part of her wanted to run home. Part of her wanted to scream. But something older, something quieter inside her began to rise. She stepped off the curb. The boys didn't see her at first. They were laughing too loudly. But when Maya stepped between them and Ellie, the sidewalk fell silent. Stop. Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. But it was steady, like the weight of it came from somewhere deeper than her throat. The boys blinked. Ricky raised an eyebrow. What is she, your grandma or something? Maya didn't flinch. No, she said. But she's someone. That landed heavier than anyone expected. Tanner lowered his phone slowly. Ellie finally looked up, not at the boys, at Maya. And for the first time she smiled. Just a flicker. Just enough. The boys backed off, muttering to each other, trying to laugh it off. But the laughter rang hollow now, like a joke they didn't understand anymore. Maya didn't watch them leave. She sat down on the bench next to Ellie, her knees brushing against the old wood still damp from the milk. They sat in silence for several minutes. The wind tugged at Maya's scarf. A leaf skittered across the pavement. Somewhere in the distance, a bus groaned to a stop. But at that bench, everything felt still. Ellie finally spoke. Her voice was like gravel smoothed by time. Most people only know how to laugh at what they don't understand. Maya turned slightly. Why don't you say anything back? Ellie gave a small shrug. Because I don't need to. Maya looked down at her hands. They were clenched in her lap. She didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. They sat together, two people from different worlds held by the same silence. When Maya stood to leave, Ellie reached into her coat and pulled out a folded napkin. She placed it gently in Maya's hand. Written in faded ink were 6 words, some laughs echo. Some don't deserve to. Maya stared at the note. The handwriting looped carefully as if written without hurry. She looked up to say something, but Ellie was already looking back at the street. 3 more days passed. Each afternoon, Maya passed the bench. Each time it was empty. Ellie was gone. The paper napkin remained tucked inside Maya's sketchbook, folded neatly between 2 unfinished drawings. She hadn't told anyone. Not her teachers, not her mom. It was hers to keep. Then on the 3rd evening, just as Maya was reviewing vocabulary on her school-issued tablet, a notification buzzed onto the screen. New message, unknown sender. Bring the candy. Come to 147 River Bend. Knock 3 times. That was it. No name. No signature. Just an address. Maya's heart skipped. She didn't know anyone in Riverbend. It was on the north edge of town, old warehouses, most of them shuttered years ago when the railroad closed. But something about the message felt intentional. She slipped the chocolate into her coat pocket, left a note for her mom on the kitchen table, going to library for a project, back by dinner, and pedaled off on her old bicycle tires, humming softly on the cracked pavement. By the time she reached 147, Riverbend dusk had folded itself across the sky. The building was a ghost-faded red brick windows, boarded gate rusted. Above the entrance, a worn wooden sign dangled from one hinge, MTHL Manufacturing. Closed. Maya swallowed hard. She reached for the padlock on the gate. It was old, rusted, and open, as if someone had been waiting. She stepped inside. The air smelled of dust and cocoa. The hallway stretched long and dim, lit only by moonlight slipping through a cracked skylight. At the far end stood a brass-plated door. Faintly etched into the metal were the words, "Kindness is the only currency accepted beyond this point." Maya knocked 3 times. The door opened by itself. Inside, the world changed. Wooden racks lined with handwritten labels, copper kettles glinting like relics, chocolate molds shaped like medals. A wall of black and white photos, faces of janitors, nurses, veterans, and strangers. In the center of the room, a woman stirred chocolate in a deep copper pot, steam curling above her like memory. Ellie didn't turn. She just said, "Took you long enough." Maya stepped forward, eyes wide. "This is yours." Ellie nodded. "Used to be. Now, it's waiting." For what? Maya whispered. For someone who doesn't need to ask. After stepping between cruelty and silence, Maya was invited to a shuttered factory on Riverbend. There she found Ellie Mathers, not a forgotten woman, but a decorated veteran and chocolatier who had once changed lives with sweetness. And now she was ready to share her story. The walls of the old MTHL factory felt like they were built from memory itself. It was warmer than Maya expected inside. Not from central heating, but from the low, even flame beneath the copper pot, where Ellie stirred a thick ribbon of chocolate. It smelled faintly of brown sugar and cinnamon, soft and nostalgic, like the inside of a bakery during winter break. But this place wasn't a shop. There was no counter, no prices, no music. Just the quiet scrape of spoon against kettle and the hum of stories long sealed in brick and brass. Ellie didn't look up right away. "I built this place to protect something," she said, her voice even, "not to sell it." Maya stepped closer, careful not to touch anything. Her eyes moved over the shelves, molds shaped like purple hearts, handwritten labels tied with twine, a long workbench covered in wax paper, and napkins inked with quotes. "To protect what?" Maya asked. "Softness," Ellie replied. "Kindness. Things the world treats like they're disposable." Maya watched as Ellie poured the chocolate into a shallow tray, spreading it evenly with the back of a wide spoon. Her movements were practiced steady, almost meditative. People think war is loud, Ellie said suddenly, tapping her chest. Explosions, gunfire, screaming. But the parts that stay with you? She paused. They're quiet, dead quiet. Maya didn't interrupt. I was 22 when I deployed. Ellie continued. Air Force logistics. I moved fuel and food through sandstorms. Drew maps in the dark. Counted body bags at dawn. She exhaled slowly. Never carried a gun. But I carried the weight of everyone who didn't make it home. Ellie's voice didn't shake. It didn't need to. When I came back, people clapped at the airport. Called me a hero. A week later, I couldn't get a job selling printer ink. Too serious. Too military. Too much. She gave a bitter smile and picked up a folded cloth to wipe her hands. So I made chocolate. Maya blinked. Just like that. Not just like that, Ellie said. I needed something soft, something no one had to survive to enjoy. Maya looked around again, this time with different eyes. The place wasn't old, it was sacred. Every detail had intention. Every bar, every label, every name. Mel's legacy became huge, Maya whispered. Why did you stop? Ellie rested her hands on the table. Because it stopped being about why I started. Investors wanted speed, numbers, market share. And I just wanted dignity in sweetness. She walked over to a tall shelf near the back and pulled down a black leather notebook. The cover was cracked, the spine stitched with old thread. She handed it to Maya. Inside were dozens, maybe hundreds of names. Each one carefully penned, each next to a date. Some had small notes, gave his coat to a stranger in a snowstorm. Stayed up 3 nights to keep the shelter running. Told the truth even when it hurt. Maya looked up, her throat tight. These were people you gave chocolate to. Ellie nodded. Not chocolate, recognition. She sat again, slower this time, her eyes watching Maya gently. This is the war I carry now, she said. Not with rifles, but with memory, with choice, with hope, that not all kindness is random. Maya turned the pages carefully. The ink curved gently at the ends of sentences, like it had been written without hurry. I didn't disappear because I was sick, Ellie said. I disappeared to watch, to see if the world still deserves softness. Maya swallowed hard. And did it? Ellie gave a tired smile. You brought me banana bread when you had nothing else. That was the only application I needed. Before Maya could respond, a knock echoed through the side corridor. Ellie looked up. She's been expecting more than just you. Maya turned. 3 figures stood in the doorway. Ricky, Jace, and Tanner. They didn't look like the boys from the bench. Their hoods were soaked. Their phones were away. Their hands stuffed deep into their coat pockets. We were wondering, Ricky started, voice scratchy, if we could talk to her. Maya didn't speak. She just stepped aside. The boys walked in slowly, awkward, unsure if they were supposed to sit or stand. Ellie didn't say anything at first. She just watched them. Then, without a word, she bent down beneath the table and pulled out a small tin box. From it, she retrieved 3 chocolates, each wrapped in deep red wax paper, each sealed with a black wax stamp in the shape of a laurel leaf. She handed one to each boy. This isn't a reward, she said gently. It's an invitation. They looked confused. I don't want your apology, Ellie continued. I want your change. She stepped forward. Take this. Do something kind, not loud, not filmed, and tell no one. Jace blinked. And then what? Then Ellie said, you'll know. And so will I. The boys didn't argue. They nodded slowly and left the way they came, quieter than when they entered. Maya stood beside Ellie, unsure of what to say. You didn't give me one, she said softly. Ellie turned to her. Because you already passed your test. That night, after the boys had gone and the factory returned to stillness, Ellie sat in her usual chair, a gray shawl wrapped over her shoulders. She looked across the workroom to where Maya sat cross-legged on the floor, flipping through the notebook. You know, Ellie said, voice like a breeze against warm brick, most people wait their whole lives to be trusted. I'd rather offer it up front. See who rises to meet it. Maya didn't respond. She just smiled. The scent of chocolate still lingered in the air. Less sweet now, more solemn. And in the heart of a shuttered building, no one noticed anymore. Something began. Ellie Mathers welcomed Maya and later the boys who had mocked her into a place not of business, but of quiet conviction. In the warm shadows of the old MTHL factory, Ellie passed on more than chocolate. She offered trust. Now winter is setting in, and Ellie is preparing to hand over the final piece of her legacy. The rain fell gently that week, not in sheets, but in a soft and endless mist that clung to the windows of the MTHL factory. Maya arrived after school most days now, her backpack replaced by a small leather satchel Ellie had given her. "Every apprentice needs one," she'd said with a half smile. Ellie moved slower these days. Her steps were careful, her breath shorter, her eyes still clear but her body a little less sure of itself. She never complained, never explained. But Maya noticed. She saw how Ellie rested more often, how her hands sometimes lingered over objects like they were saying goodbye. That Wednesday afternoon, Ellie motioned for Maya to sit. On the work table between them sat a small tin box. Its surface was scuffed corners, dented from years of use. The kind of box you'd pass by in a thrift store without noticing. But the way Ellie touched it with reverence, Maya understood it held more than metal. "This box went with me through 4 deployments," Ellie said quietly. "Used to hold tools, a compass, a tin of matches, a tiny sewing kit, things you carry when the world's falling apart." She pushed it across the table. "It holds something else now." Maya opened the lid slowly. Inside was the black leather notebook, the one filled with names and quiet acts. Beneath it, wrapped in wax paper, were 3 chocolates, each stamped differently, one in deep red, one in matte silver, and one small and unassuming stamped in gold. Ellie's voice dropped to a whisper. "You already know this isn't about candy." Maya nodded, eyes misting. "This," Ellie said, tapping the notebook, "is everything I built. Not with factories, with trust." Maya ran her hand gently over the names. The ink had faded on some. Others looked as fresh as if they'd been written that morning. "I want you to keep it," Ellie said, "but only if you understand you're not inheriting a company. You're inheriting a responsibility." "I do," Maya whispered. Ellie smiled, slow and tired. "There's one more thing." She reached into her shawl and pulled out a folded envelope. It was plain with no name, no stamp, no address. "That's because it's for whoever you think needs it next." Maya took it carefully with both hands. Then from her coat pocket, she pulled out something she'd been carrying for weeks, a flattened banana bread wrapper, folded neatly. "I don't want people to forget where it started," she said. Ellie looked at her for a long moment. Something between pride and peace passed through her expression. "You'll know what to do." That evening, the factory was quiet. Maya stayed late, sitting by the back room where Ellie rested in her worn chair. The scent of chocolate lingered in the air, warmer now, but no longer sweet. It felt like the breath between chapters. 3 days later, Ellie Mathers passed away. She was found in the early morning hours, wrapped in her gray shawl, seated in the same chair by the window. One hand rested on the armrest. The other held the golden stamped chocolate. She never ate it. The funeral was private, no reporters, no statements. Maya didn't cry, not publicly. She helped clean the workshop, dusted the shelves, and locked the front door each night. But on the 3rd night, she lit a candle on the windowsill and sat in silence for hours, the tin box beside her. The flame flickered against the metal, reflecting soft gold on the walls. The next morning, Maya walked to the park. The bench near the duck pond stood empty. A nurse in blue scrubs sat hunched forward, head in her hands. Maya didn't know her, didn't need to. She sat down beside the woman and said nothing. After a while, Maya reached into her coat and placed the envelope gently in the woman's lap. Inside was the golden chocolate and a note written in Ellie's hand. "This is not for your sweet tooth. It's for your tired soul." The woman blinked, then cried. Weeks passed. No grand opening, no brand relaunch, just small, quiet acts. Brown paper bags began appearing across Greenwood Springs on park benches and school lockers, taped to hospital doors. Each held a single piece of chocolate and a handwritten note. The handwriting wasn't Ellie's, it was Maya's. She never called it a company, she called it a habit, and she never kept the last piece. She gave it away.